world knows of the horrors of Auschwitz.
Sprawling across 6 square kilometers was a massive industrial complex, complete with laboratories, prisons, and crematoriums.
To the local villagers, it was the epidemic prevention and water purification department. But to the men inside,
At the heart of this nightmare was this general in 1940s, a brilliant but sociopathic microbiologist.
he didn't just want to win battles, he wanted to harness the power of God to annihilate entire populations. He viewed the human body as a biological canvas.
Inside the high walls of Pingfong, Ishii and his team of Japan's elite scientists conducted experiments.
The primary mission of Unit 731 was the development of biological weapons.
While other nations experimented with gases, Ishii looked to the ancient killers, the bubonic plague, anthrax, cholera, and glanders.
He didn't just want to create these diseases in a lab. He wanted to optimize them for mass murder.
The victims were mostly Chinese civilians and prisoners of war, though Russians and Pacific Islanders were also caught in the net. Once a prisoner entered the gates of Unit 731, they were stripped of their name and given a number. They were now logs.
One of the most horrific weapons developed here was the plague bomb. Ishii realized that simply dropping bacteria from
His solution? Porcelain bombs filled with millions of plague-infected bochet and grain.
To test the efficacy of these human bombs, prisoners were tied to stakes in open fields. This led to the most infamous practice of Unit 731, vivisection without anesthesia. Ishii argued that anesthetics would contaminate the results by altering the body's natural physiological response to pain and disease. In sterile, white-tiled rooms, prisoners were strapped down while still fully conscious. Surgeons would
to observe the progression of diseases like gangrene or the plague before the subject died. Some subjects had their limbs amputated and then sewn back onto the opposite side of their bodies to study blood flow.
Others had their stomachs removed and their esophagus sewn directly to their intestines to see if they could still process nutrients.
No one ever survived the vivisection rooms. Once a log was used, their remains were sent to the massive crematorium chimney. Because Harbin's winters were brutally cold, reaching temperatures of minus 40 degrees Celsius, Unit 731 became
A scientist would strike the limb with a wooden club. If it made a sound like a hollow piece of wood, the trial was complete. The victims were then brought inside to test various rehydration and thawing methods. Some were plunged into boiling water, causing the flesh to slide off the bone in minutes. Others were placed near open fires or left to thaw naturally.
The horrors extended into the vacuum chambers. Scientists wanted to know the limits of human endurance at high altitudes for their pilots.
Prisoners were placed in pressurized tanks where the air was slowly sucked out. Researchers watched through thick glass portholes as the victims...
Their internal organs ruptured, and their eyes eventually popped from their sockets due to the immense pressure differential.
monsters! Hey!
To destroy the evidence, the Japanese began a mass slaughter of the remaining Maruta. Over 400 prisoners, those who hadn't already perished from infection or the knife, were gassed or poisoned.
But Ishii didn't stop there. He ordered the elite special forces of Unit 731 to blow up the laboratory buildings.
This triggered a massive biological aftershock, causing outbreaks of the bubonic plague that killed an estimated 30,000 civilians.
He knew he possessed something the Americans desperately wanted: data on biological warfare that no civilized nation could ever obtain. When General Douglas MacArthur's occupation forces landed in Japan, the U.S. Army's biological warfare investigators tracked Ishii down. Instead of a trial, a secret negotiation took place. The United States government, fearful that the Soviet Union would get hold of Ishii's research, in exchange for the full dataset of human experimentation, the United States granted Shiro Ishii and his staff total immunity from prosecution.
Not a single member of Unit 731 was tried for war crimes at the Tokyo trials.
The men who spent years torturing thousands of logs did not go into hiding. They became the architects of...
One researcher became the head of the Japanese Olympic Committee. Another founded a major pharmaceutical company. Others became deans of prestigious medical schools.
The general himself lived a quiet, comfortable life in Tokyo, dying of throat cancer in 1957.
The research gathered through the blood and screams of Ping Fong was shipped to Fort Detrick in Maryland, where it formed the foundation of the...
Unit 731 remains a ghost in the machinery of history, a reminder that in the pursuit